I'm afraid we had a major emergency statement here in the House of Commons on the China's actions over Hong Kong. And this is the dominant feature of what I'm on at the moment. I set up a little while ago with some others an organization called the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, IPAC, which has now got 16 nations, two co-chairs in each from left and right, all parliamentarians coming together with the single feature of concern with regards to the behavior of China across a range of issues, and what should democracies in the free world do to deal with this. And the purpose of IPAC is to argue for those democracies to come together and to shape a common position with regards to the China under this existing communist government. There is, Hong Kong is just but the last element in a whole series of abuses with regards to the natural order, the rules-based order that we exist under, certainly in the free world. There's a chain of them now. That what's happened in Hong Kong is essentially the Chinese government saying that they don't really care what the rest of the world thinks of them, and that their ideological position is that their form of government is the form of government that will ultimately prevail against what they think and see, I think, as a weak free world bunch of nations who don't seem to be able to ever share a common purpose, but are desperate for business from China, and so quietly turn a blind eye to most of these abuses. On Monday, the IPAC organization, which I spoke of, produced a report which was Professor Zen's report on the Uyghurs and the treatment of the Uyghurs using Chinese government documents, in which it's demonstrated quite clearly that a systematic process, really, I think, verging on the elimination of an ethnic group, which the papers talked about with regards to sterilization of Uyghur women. You can see the birth rates have collapsed for Uyghurs in the last 2 years under this particular policy. This is just but one. The treatment of the Christians, treatment of the Tibetans. You can look at the behavior over the South China Seas, their aggressive behavior now on the border with India, their military posturing over Taiwan, and their stated strategic aim of having the most significant global economy and the most significant global military power by 2040, thus to be able to assert their rights as they see them over Taiwan. So all of this, then if you go to the strategic nature of the way in which they have bit by bit pieced together a dominance in the commercial world, not just in terms of telecoms and the big debates here and elsewhere on whether Huawei should be involved in the telecom system, which I don't think they should be. And bear in mind, 10, 12 years ago, there were at least 10 or 11 systems companies in the telecoms area that could have produced systems and networks. They're now down to three in the free world: Samsung, Nokia, and Ericsson. There are none in America. They all went out of business. Why? Because Huawei, in breach of the WTO, the 85% ownership of the rare earth materials that go for the making up of batteries and telephones. They're now predominance in battery technology, knowing full well that the free world is going to be desperate now to move to zero carbon, and therefore this councils in the UK. You can go through, and the reason why I agreed to come onto this, and I'm speaking on it others, is that I think, frankly, the free world now needs to see this for what it is, which is a piecemeal process of domination, which we simply cannot accept. Hong Kong, as I say, is the last of the most recent links in this chain and process. They've given up the idea of diplomacy as a tool, which was the case 8 years ago or 7 years ago. And President Xi is now bound on a course of much greater confrontation and aggression on the basis that their economy will continue to grow and they will have the wherewithal. But of course, that lies in our hands, and it's up for the free world to decide whether they're prepared to allow that economy to grow in quite the same stage unless they change their ways. And I think, therefore, as I said in the House of Commons today, it's all well and good to talk about Magnitsky arrangements on individuals and sanctions. And it's all very well to speak of UN rapporteurs, which are all fine and very worthy, or even motions in the UN with regards to China's recent actions. But the only one area that I think they concern about is the nature of what happens to their economy if it doesn't continue to grow and grow at significant rates. The Chinese government relies on the people of China to acquiesce in this process, because of course each year they will be better off than the year before, and by some significant degree. So it does lie within the hands of the West to say to China, we can't go on allowing a country to access all that benefits it within the free world, particularly within the free market, but to ignore the rules that exist around the applications of those markets, to ignore the concept of human rights, which underpins the operation of those markets, and to consider that democracy can be swept aside in the strategic vision, and democracy and the rule of law underpin absolutely everything with regards to market interaction and countries' interaction with each other, without which we will end up, as we did in the 1930s, with enormous sanctions and barriers and trade freezing and real depressions. And I finally end by saying the honest truth is we've been here before. History has a habit of revisiting itself. We are now, I believe, at a similar place we were in the 1930s, which is to understand you can choose to go on appeasing a nation, or you can choose to find a way to bring them step by step back into the rules-based order. We face that choice right now. I think Hong Kong was the moment when, if we didn't get it, we certainly have got to get it now.